Hello, and welcome to the Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Commissioner Mary Kuney, and my guests today are Bud Morrison, Spokane Valley Rancher, and Nicki Feinten, Water Resource Project Manager for Spokane County. Bud and Nicki, welcome to today's program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I'm excited to start our conversation today about the Saltese Flats and the new Doris Morrison Learning Center. But before we get into that, Nicki, I'd like to have you give a brief introduction to our audience and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Nicki Feinten. I'm a water resource scientist for Spokane County. I grew up in the upper Midwest where water was really abundant and became really interested in it at a very young age. I went on to undergraduate and graduate school and graduated from Oregon State. When I graduated in 2018, I found this wonderful opportunity with Spokane County and the Saltese Flats Wetland that I was really excited about and decided to give it a shot, and have really enjoyed my time here since.
Well, thank you, and we're excited that you're here with Spokane County and you know, out at the Saltese Flats. So thank you.
Yeah.
So Bud, now can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the audience so they know a little bit about you?
Well, I was born in 1941. Lived on the Morrison Ranch my whole life except for 4 years or 5 when I went to college. When I came back from college, I went back to farming and raising cattle on the ranch, and have been at it ever since. Myself and the family, my dad and mom, pretty much ran the ranch for many, many years. My mother was a key player in the ranch operation, the matriarch of the family by sure.
And I look forward to hearing more about your mom here as we continue the program. So, Bud, can you tell us about the history of the Saltese Flats and how your family came about to own it and to farm there in that property?
It goes back a long ways. My granddad, Peter Morrison, began to purchase property in Saltese in 1892. In 1898, he purchased a large portion of it. He bought this property from different landowners, but a large portion of it then, and began to drain the lake and create farm ground on this. At that present time, he owned over 2,000 acres, and he'd put this together in like 10 or 12 years. They drained the lake using horses and what we call Fresnos. They drained it, they worked in the fall primarily because it was dry, and build massive ditches there and drain the lake. And he went on to have the largest timothy meadow in the state of Washington. My mother, after college and getting her teaching degree, taught school in Montana for 3 years, lived on a ranch, and rode horseback to school every day in a one-room schoolhouse. Later on in life, or a few years later, she came back and taught school in eastern or western Washington for 3 years. And she married my dad in 1929. My mother was 26 years old at that time. I think that she was a key player in the whole community as far as manager, and just an outstanding individual.
So Nicki, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about kind of the history too, the geological history that is at the Saltese Flats, because we've had some higher education classes come out, and so let's talk about the geological history.
Yeah, absolutely. Saltese Flats has a really unique geological history, and we've been able to work with Eastern Washington University and Spokane Community College to kind of do some geological digs on the site and kind of peel apart the record and the history of what happened in the area. Saltese Flats was originally a 1,000-acre lake kind of created by Glacial Lake Missoula erupting and the Columbia River Basin being formed, a lot like Liberty Lake and Newman Lake. But over time, that lake kind of slowly became a wetland, and wetland soils are really good at kind of holding on to that historic profile of geology. And we've found evidence of a few different interesting geological events in those digs. First off, there's some billion-year-old Precambrian rock that exists still in the uplands surrounding the site, but also the historic evidence of volcanoes like Mount Mazama, which is the same volcano where Crater Lake was formed in Oregon. We have evidence of that all the way up in our wetland, just about 5 or 6 feet down, which is really interesting. We've also found a little bit of evidence of Mount St. Helens erupting in the early 80s. And it's just a kind of a testament to the gem that Saltese Flats is and its ability to kind of hold on to that history throughout time.
And Bud, so as we look at the Saltese Flats, I guess I'd like to know a little bit about where's the water come from that goes into the Saltese Flats?
Mica Peak is the main watershed. There are some smaller watersheds to the west and so on, but Mica Peak is as high as Mount Spokane, and the snowpack up there, that's what feeds Saltese. And the county we used to have a lot of flooding and all in there. My granddad drained it. It was hard to manage still. But now, with the county project that they've done, it's easy to manage. They've done a fantastic job on engineering and designing and all, and it's there for the public to come and enjoy.
And so as you're talking about the county, can you tell me a little bit about how the Spokane County became involved and how you decided to sell, Saltese Flats?
We'd been approached by the state of Washington quite a few years ago they wished to buy the meadow and do somewhat like what the county has done. I rejected their offer. They claimed that they didn't offer enough money. The money wasn't the whole thing. I just felt that we would lose control and I wanted to stay involved with the thing all the ways. So and my mother was still alive at that time. So I turned down their offer and forgot about it. And about 4 years later, Bruce Walls from Spokane County came to me and told me that we would like to discuss buying your ranch and the entire Saltese Meadows. Bruce and Rawls from the county and I became very good friends on it. I respected him very highly. And I think we had a very good relationship, and that's what's led to eventually the county purchasing our ranch, which controlled all the water in the Saltese Basin.
And how long ago was that?
You would ask me that.
I would.
18 years.
Wow.
Probably, give or take a year.
Okay.
Took a long time, Mary. There was negotiations back and forth. Money was never the object, but there was, and one of the reasons is that I wanted a committee that was comprised of one of the Morrison family members. As it turned out, I'm the one. But I mean, there's others. My son could have done the same thing, but that was one of the conditions. And then we wanted to have some say in the project, which the county has let us do. One of the main conditions was that the county would build an interpretive center. At that time we called it, it's now a learning center, in honor of my mother. And that was a main condition, and the county agreed to do that. It's taken a long time to get there, but we're finished. And I'm really proud of it, and I'm really happy with it, because I've been involved all the way with it in a very, very small way. But we're going to have a grand opening here in a few weeks, and everybody's looking forward to that.
It's going to be great, and
I believe so.
You have been more than just part of it in a small way, in a very large way. So I'm going to have Nicki talk a little bit about then how, why Spokane County wanted to purchase the wetlands, and what their purpose is, and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, the original reason that Spokane County purchased the property was their interest in potentially being able to place reclaimed water from our brand new treatment plant that we had built at the time. Saltese Flats was a large enough area, and it provided the perfect soil types to be able to kind of use reclaimed water to mitigate a wetland project. Since that time, we've decided not to use our reclaimed water to fulfill that original use, but we were able to build the control structures needed if that ever is a potential chance to do that. But it also guides the runoff water off of Mica Peak, so we can still dedicate ourselves to restoring habitat for various wildlife species and migratory waterfowl that use it, but also kind of provide this area for local residents to recreate and find reprieve in a valley that's vastly growing. And so I think the county really wants to support that kind of use as well.
Yeah, and that's one of it. Like, so the county is restoring them to the natural wetland. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The process, yeah. And so our primary tool is being able to introduce water back into an area that hasn't seen water in over 100 years. We've had to do some physical removal of some invasive species and fighting off noxious weeds, but really kind of using the natural water off the mountain, we've been able to revitalize the seed bank where wetland plants from before it was drained have just been waiting for the right site conditions, and providing those habitats have been able to provide for different species of birds and different species of wildlife to really return to their home. And that's really kind of a fun and easy tool for us. It's taken many years of work to get to this point, and it'll take many more, but we've seen quite a bit of progress, and it's been a delight to work with.
And I guess too, in addition to that, it wasn't just Spokane County. You had a lot of volunteers and outside agencies or groups. You know, maybe just give us a little bit of that quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Ducks Unlimited has been crucial to our wetland restoration process. They've been doing this for a very long time all over the country. They're absolutely experts in the field, and so they have been very useful to the county to help us plan and prepare and know what to look for. Other local groups, like the local chapter of the Audubon Society, has been really helpful in the development of our learning center and of kind of bird educational tools and interpretive signs, as well as the Spokane Valley Heritage Museum. They've been really helping kind of developing that interpretive piece to the wetland so folks can go out and look at signs and panels and really understand the stories and the history of the property.
And so how many acres do we have are there, and what is the trail system?
Yeah, we have over 600 acres of wetland with a few different habitat types kind of spread out between. We have 5 miles of trail system. 1.5 miles of that is elevated gravel trail through our wettest portion of the property. It's just beautiful for recreating and walking on. And other trails are a little bit more remote. They're more like mowed pathways, but they can really take you a distance, and you can see different things all in the same property.
And we definitely see it getting used too for people that are taking photography for birds. It's pretty amazing to go out there and just see all the people that are using that area.
Absolutely.
So I think I want to talk about a little bit about kind of how the Learning Center then came to be. So Bud, you touched on it with the agreement with Spokane County, that was part of your agreement, was that you really wanted that. It wasn't necessarily about the money, it was about having that center that people could come to look at the Saltese Flats area. I think I was a brand new commissioner at the time, and you came into my office. I didn't know anything about it. And
You were, that's right. When I knew my way to the front door of the courthouse, and so I called and left, asked to have a meeting with Commissioner Kuney, who I'd never met before. And when I went in there, I think I've told the story before, that Mary called me Mr. Morrison, and I said, call me Bud. Mary said, call me Mary. So we've hit it off very well, and I think, Mary, you've done a fantastic job getting this thing going, and we're now, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much finished with the project. It's up now. The public can start coming on the 22nd and travel on these trails and go all over and see the the Learning Center and the history and all. It's world class as far as I'm concerned. I last year was riding my horse down there and talked to two ladies. They'd come over from Seattle to see this thing, if you can believe that. And I was amazed. And now to see the traffic out there, people out walking on the trails. You need to know, 2 weeks ago we had 46 elk there in that meadow at the south end of the meadow. About a week ago, there was 20 of them there. They passed through. The south end of the meadow is relatively dry. Most of the water is at the north end. So I mean, there's tree rows where the elk bed down and all. It's something to be able to see that and realize I was a part of making this happen. And Spokane County has done a fantastic job on it, I can tell you.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary.
And you know, part of it was it has taken a while. So, you know, after our first meeting, you know, and I learning about it, you know, I have to give credit to Central Valley School District because it's their property that to the north end that you know, this retired superintendent Ben Small was there at the time.
He was a key player in it.
And he was a key player to help us, you know, figure out, you know, how to look at that property. Would they be willing to sell it to us? You know, what would they be willing to do? They were going to have a high school there that then moved closer to the freeway. And so it was kind of in limbo a little bit. And so we got together and we just thought, what could we do with that? And so we knew we didn't have enough money. And so I did seek funding from the state, Washington State. So we got funding from the state legislature in 2 different rounds, and Representative Mike Foles from the 6th District was very instrumental in helping me attain that, because I think that's part of what they knew, he knew, that this could be a world-class center for learning and for people to come and see nature. And so those are the things that I find fascinating, how your idea of really wanting to have something, but you weren't quite sure, and it's all of us, you know, that have really come together to make this happen, you know, funding-wise, to what the building's going to look, what the building does look like now. And so I just want to say, you know, thank you for bringing me along on the journey, because it's been great. And I think we are ending up with, this is going to be an educational opportunity for students, adults, it doesn't matter. It provides that space.
The whole community, the state and all.
Yeah.
It's a special, special place. And the 22nd of April,
yep, when we do
we're going to be able to witness that, because it is very, very special. I'm very proud to have been able to I never visualized it being like this, Mary, 18 years ago. In fact, I mentioned to Bruce Rawls, I don't want to have a failed project out here, Mr. Rawls. We've got to make sure this is first class. And at that time, he told me, it'll be world class, Bud, or I wouldn't be touching it. So anyway, I want to thank you, because there were problems along the line, financial problems, but we stayed the course. And when I talked to you and discussed this, you told me, we're kind of short on money, Bud, but I think I have a plan. And you went to the legislature 2 years in a row and came back with enough money to build this center, or a big portion of it. And I thank you for that. I don't know how we would have ever done anything. The county did not have the funds to do something like that. This county taxpayers are paying very little of this. If you're a taxpayer in the state of Washington, I'm told you're paying part of it through Olympia. But I just hope people come out and walk the trails and see the history. There are storyboards all along, and there's storyboards in the center, and see how special this is.
And I think people are really going to see that.
They will. The public is already
Yes.
waiting to come on the 22nd. I know that.
Yeah, so Nicki, with the center, can we talk a little bit about the educational programs that we think are going to be there?
Yeah, we already have such an amazing water resource education program within our department that does really awesome work educating students and adults alike about our aquifer and our Spokane River health. And the Doris Morrison Learning Center is going to really allow us to expand into more natural systems, be able to talk about wetland systems and how that really attributes to our aquifer health as well. We have great plans to include Central Valley and East Valley school districts and be able to really be a center for field trips for students to be able to come out to the center, to be able to go out into the wetland and get dirty and catch frogs and look for bugs, but have this center to go back to and really find reprieve from the elements, which depending on the time of year can be really intense, but also provide this space and lab tables and things for students and kids to really explore. But in concert to that, I have an amazing gallery space for adults and families to be able to come in and also learn those same things. And so I think we really wanted to find a balance to be able to find an educational opportunity for all ages, and I believe we're really going to let that shine.
I think so too. And I think one of the special things that I know is that this learning center that we now know it to be, the Doris Morrison Learning Center, is going to be a name that will stand, forever.
It will.
And so, Bud, I would like you to tell me a little bit about Doris Morrison and the importance of naming the new center after her.
Well, Mary, Doris Morrison was a get-her-done kind of woman. She was very bright. She came, after she was in Montana at teaching school, she came back and married my father, who she'd met in college, in 1929. The Depression was just started. And so, what did she do? She went to town and got a job at the Spokane Review running the classified advertising. In there, rather than teaching, she went to work for 4 years at the Spokane Review. She drove a car, an old car, clunker of a car to Green Acres, got on the bus and went to town every day, came home and fed hired men and worked on the ranch. So many people admired her in the community the way she had, because ranching in those days was tough with the Depression and all. And then along the line, we lost my brother. And this hurt my mother considerable. But she stayed tough, and she stayed the course, and I'd like to just tell a couple of stories about her because she was quite a horsewoman. And when she was about 85, one of the horses kicked her and knocked her down and broke her hip. So I called an ambulance, took her to town, they patched her up, put pins and plates, steel pins and plates in her pelvis, brought her back home. It wasn't very long, and she was off and going with the walker and back to driving and doing all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it didn't slow her down much. About 8 years later, she went out to get her mail. She got hit by a hit-and-run driver, knocked her down again, broke her other hip. So these are funny stories because this tough little woman wasn't going to let her get it down. The doctor told me when they took her to town, he said, these things can be fatal for somebody this old. It wasn't fatal to her. She came back, took a while to get healed up. My wife cooked dinners for her. We took her down meals to her. She lived alone at the ranch house there. And she was up and going, driving, doing that. One day I went in there to the house in the morning at 7. I always went in to see her at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I smelled smoke in the ranch house. Now, the ranch house was built in 1885, excuse me. And I went up to her bedroom and I said, what do I smell? Well, she said, I smoked my pillow. I scorched it. How did you do that? Well, I was reading my Bible and I fell asleep and the light fell on my pillow and it started on fire. I said, where is that pillow? Well, I got my walker and my pillow in my hand, and I got out to the front door and threw it out on the lawn and went back to bed. That's the kind of woman she was. A get-her-done kind of woman that was amazing what she can do in life. What I want to tell you is that when she passed at 103 and a half, we had a ceremony for her, and she decided she wanted to be buried with my brother and my dad. Mm-hmm. And so, but she wanted to be cremated. So we had that done, had the service and all. About a month later, the funeral home called me and said, we got your mother in a little bottle here, and she's ready to be picked up. I told them, thank you. They said, we have a question. What do you want us to do with this iron we have? In other words, when they cremated her. So I have her iron from both hips in the garage at home.
I love it.
It's something.
Well, I think the story of that you're telling of your mother is so important for everyone to know that that's who this person and that's who this new learning center represents. The woman that gets things done. Yep. The woman who was tenacious, who didn't give up. Yep. You know, who
in the worst of times.
Yeah, who went to college when women weren't going to college. Yep. So
took a job in Montana.
Took a job in Montana, and taught school. So I mean, so it's so fitting that we're able to do this. So I just want to say thank you, Bud.
Well, she's a special woman.
You know, it's been my pleasure to get to know her through you. You know, and to know that this learning center will carry her name on, you know, forever.
Come to the Learning Center on the 22nd. Her story is on the wall.
I love that. Yeah, that's going to be good. Well, I want to thank you both. So, Bud and
Thank
Nicki,
you, Mary.
I've enjoyed our discussion, and I think that our viewers have too. I think they're learning a lot about the Saltese Flats and the Learning Center. So thank you again both for being here today.
Appreciate it.
As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on our Spokane County homepage and our Spokane County YouTube channel. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney. Thank you for joining us today on Spokane County Spotlight.